everyone. Okay, next for our panelists, I'm going to call you up one by one, and I would love if you could take a seat with me up here. First is Jackie Bailey. Please welcome Jackie Bailey, an international conversation coach and the founder of the Speak, Feed, Lead project, where she empowers young people and adults to confidently use their voices on global stages. A TEDx speaker and award-winning coach, Jackie is passionate about helping others turn their stories into strength and leadership. Welcome. Next is Kaylee Robertson. Kaylee Robertson is a mental health speaker, author, and certified peer support specialist. Drawing from her own experiences with severe adolescent mental health challenges, she helps youth and young adults navigate recovery and resilience. Kaylee is also the founder and leader of Peer Support Specialist of Canada's first digital recovery and mental health center, a nonprofit addressing the long-term impacts of social media. Welcome. Next, we have Diana Oskov. Diana Oskov is a rapid transformational therapist, clinical hypnotherapist, and life coach. In her practice, Revealed Mind, Diana specializes in overcoming generational cycles, breaking free from inherited patterns, perfectionism, and emotional exhaustion. Next, we have Robert Hinz. Robin Hinz is the Youth and Young Adult Program Coordinator with NAMI South King County and a mental health speaker. Drawing from her own lifelong experiences with mental health challenges, Robin is passionate about supporting teens and young adults in her community. She holds a master's degree in sociology from Arizona State University and a Bachelor of Arts in Psychology from Central Washington University, and she loves connecting people to NAMI resources and building resilience among youth. Next, we have Shruti Desai. Shruti is a kids yoga educator, child advocate, and teen mental health coach dedicated to helping young people feel seen, heard, and empowered. She is the founder of Mudita Circles, where she combines yoga, mindfulness, and social emotional learning to build resilient confidence and connection in children and teens. Certified in mental health first aid, Shruti brings practical, evidence-informed guidance to families and communities supporting youth mental health. And last but definitely not least, we have Ritika Diman. Ritika is a software development engineer at Amazon, where she builds generative AI-powered communication systems that enable real-time human communication at scale. She holds a master's degree in AI from Carnegie Mellon University and was crowned Miss India, Washington, USA 2025 first runner-up. As a multidisciplinary voice at the intersection of technology, youth, and culture, Ritika uses her platform to advocate for more human-centered innovation to support and mentor youth navigating growth, pressure, and digital experiences in today's fast-paced technology-driven world. Please welcome all of our wonderful panelists here today. Thank you so much for joining us. I would love to, let me get you a mic really quick. If you want to start this. Okay, I have 5 questions to ask all of you today, and of course, because we're trying to get on time, if we could stick to 5 minutes, 1 minute per question, that would be great. I'm just gonna go down the line and please hand off the mic. Thank you all once again for being here. Our first question for you is, we want you to briefly share how you first became interested in youth mental health, and please explain a little bit of the work you do today.
I think this is on. Hello, everyone. I grew up in an abusive home, so mental health issues were ingrained in my everyday life. And when I began to break my silence as an adult woman, I realized how powerful not only my voice was, but my message. So today, it is my mission to never let a child in my stewardship or presence to feel silenced, to feel unheard and misunderstood. So I run the Speak, Feed, Lead project today, and not only do we teach children and youth how to speak on a stage, but we give them the opportunity to do so.
Thank you, Jackie. Very nice. So my name is Kaylee. My lived experience with mental health really starts when I was a teenager. I am the Gen Z we see in data today about social media and smartphones. I was hospitalized when I was 16 years old due to psychosis related to social media use. And I struggled right into my early adult years with this mental illness. In my recovery, one of the biggest things I noticed was the gap in care that I did receive clinically and the missing link that existed really trying to help Gen Z when it comes to what's going on with social media and kind of naming this experience that was really hard for myself and my family to name. So I work now as a peer support specialist. I specialize in psychosis and I work in clinical systems, but I also am the founder of Canada's first digital recovery center. I am Canadian, I'm from Toronto. And what we do at the center is work to bridge the gap between the psychological harms that have happened on social media. It is not a digital detox or digital wellness center. It is specifically peer support to help young people that are suffering with identity crisis from social media use.
For me, my journey started when I lost my dad. I grew up in a communist country where we never talk about feelings or mental health. Those were completely forbidden. And after I lost my dad, I started discovering that there's something more. It's the physical health, but there's mental health also. So I started doing research and digging deep, and all of this kind of brought me closer to my dad. I discovered my dad after I losing him. And after that, I started working on myself because I grew up in a home with alcoholic parent, with walking on eggshells, and all of this pushed me into different journey, rediscovering all of those stuck feelings that I have carried with me. However, I did not able to save my dad, but today I'm working with people all around the world and I'm saving other lives, which makes me happy.
Hi, I'm Robin Hines with NAMI South King County. And I first became interested in youth mental health advocacy when I went to work for NAMI around August of 2022. And not longer after joining, I was elevated to the position of NAMI's Ending the Silence Program Coordinator, which is a teen signature mental health presentation that we give in middle schools and high schools. And in that position, I had to jump in with both feet and learn as much as I could about youth mental health. I earned my Ending the Silence presenter certification, and from there, my passion for supporting youth mental health continues to grow.
I think for me, it started after having 2 kids. I think it was need that, it started with a need when, in between, we were shuffling between India and US. We went to India for a year and then we came back. My older one, I saw him struggle, not really struggle, but had a lot of big emotions and he didn't have the vocabulary to express it. And that's when I kind of felt, I got curious as to how can I help him? How can I feel like, how can I be of any help or support him? I've done yoga. I was used to, or rather, yoga had helped me heal myself. And so I kind of went back and thought, is there a way that yoga can help kids as well? And that curiosity got me to get trained in adult, YTT yoga certification and children's certification as well. But my heart is where, to help kids and everything. So that's how I kind of came about supporting children and led to an initiative called Mudita Circles, where it's a platform for children, where my goal is to help children learn the tools that we as adults struggle with. If we can teach them self-awareness, emotional, literacy, give them the vocabulary at the get-go, probably it will help them navigate better.
Hi everyone, I'm Ritika. So, having been working and being closely associated with technology building, I was realizing that how fast we are building what we're building, especially in the age of AI. And that kind of made me very curious about our dependency on social media and AI for literally everything these days. And I started exploring more around how are we really regulating this, and this made me also curious, like how is the younger generation feeling about it, and how are they coping up with it. So I started doing some research and listening to a lot of podcasts and a lot of summits around it, and that's what bring my interest into this. So I'm really excited to join this conversation today because I think this is the need of the hour. All of us have gone through it, and through our experiences, we can really share and you can support and save someone's life.
Thank you. Thank you. And thank you for all of the incredible work that you do. Our next question is, how has your personal story or lived experience shaped the work you do professionally?
So I think I have many experiences, not all together, but over the span of life, I felt that I tried to be like an overachiever, right? Having come from an Indian family, like you want to focus on your academics and you want to go to a good college, like many of the young people in the earlier panel mentioned. I had a similar experience. And then moving to the US from India, it had a different impact on my mental health because I was living with my family whole life, and it stuck me with things like homesickness and loneliness at times. More so, like I feel the responsibility and all that experiences. Sometimes there was one experience where I did not score well in an exam, and I literally felt like, okay, I have the tendency of overthinking and I'll go to the extreme of it. So these were the things, but I was well aware of where my thoughts are going, where my brain is thinking, and I would choose to talk to my parents, talk to my friends about it. So that's one such experience. And just growing up, I feel that my experience has not been fully shaped by how I have suffered, but also I am inspired by how my parents or the environment around me kept on giving me tools that I did not realize about until I really needed them. Growing up, my mom would ask me to meditate or focus on yoga and believing in my faith. That did not feel like a need earlier. But now that I was suffering as an adult on these things, those were the tools that I got out of my box and were helping me in my journey.
Yeah, I think for me, like Menaka mentioned earlier on, which is not, it's mental health. Everybody faces mental health issues, right? It's about having the awareness. And I think Vikram also stated about like anxiety and things that we grow up as a kid, that sometimes we may not know the way to handle it. And as we get into the adulthood, it might turn into a bigger issue as well. And also, I think Tanvi stated at the age of 14 is when you see a lot of mental health challenges or mental health issues kind of surface. So for me, when I was young, I think self-awareness was something I struggled with, not having the language, not knowing what I was going through. I was like, let's get with it. Like, you rightly said, it's we have to achieve, or we have to get it going from one place to another. And I think we come from a background where it is okay. We are expected to adjust. We are expected to be strong. And so in all of those, I think we do learn to be resilient at most, but the self-awareness aspect kind of gets in the background and never really, gets day of the light. I think as I got into the adulthood and came across yoga, that's when I understood when I slowed down with yoga was when I was able to understand what are my true feelings, and what is it that I'm feeling, and how to express. So I think with self-awareness, I was able to build the communication and then was able to be confident as well. So I think for me personally, it all starts from, knowing yourself and being self-aware.
So I lived with undiagnosed ADHD and major depression for almost 60 years. Yes, I'm that old, and probably older than most of your grandparents. But, that didn't stop me from reaching for the stars. And in my introduction, she mentioned I earned my bachelor's degree in psychology from Central Washington University. But keep in mind, that was 2016, not that long ago. And then I went on to earn my master's in sociology at the age of 62, which I'm really quite proud of. And the reason I bring that up, thank you. Somehow I always get a hand for that one. Pursuing these degrees really helped me better understand my own experiences with mental health, but also the broader ways that mental health affects individuals and society. This awareness continues to shape and inspire the work I do today.
For me, and everything started when you opened this mental health door. I discovered that I have been struggling with imposter syndrome for pretty much my entire life. Being perfectionist and a super mom and super girl, doing everything myself, all of those qualities were something that has been carrying on my shoulders for a very long time. In the moment I was able to overcome those obstacles, I think I become a better parent for my kids, and I become a better example for all the future generations that are coming after us. And this is something that really warms my heart and gives me opportunity coming from there to help others who are struggling with the same issues.
We're all such amazing women on this panel. Hey, we've got a whole bunch of, round of applause. Women power, right? That's amazing. So as I mentioned, I'm a Gen Z who has lived experience with mental health. So obviously that lens has really shaped the work that I do and what got me into being a mental health provider. And that lens comes in so many different angles, whether I'm doing clinical work or speaking professionally. Knowing what those systems are like and how to navigate them makes a world of a difference to the person on the receiving end of that support. But a big piece of it that I recognize as a peer, as a speaker, and someone who just truly has been there is that I do not really just see symptoms. And in the clinical sphere, that's so much of what matters, but there's so much more to it. It's not just youth anxiety and depression, and it's especially not that way today. And when I work with others, I'm really listening for that comparison culture that exists among young people, the performance. People feel like they're always on now, the performance culture that exists. And in addition, the constant exposure, right? This isn't a blue light conversation, it's the constant exposure of everything that is taking place online in the digital environment. It's not just about how long we're on the screen, it's what we're actually seeing and what we're digesting through that system. And without taking that approach, a symptom management approach really scratches the surface. And I think as mental health professionals and people that work in this sphere, we have to remember recovery and identity versus just symptom management. Because without it, truly, youth don't thrive and people do not recover.
I know very well what it feels like to sit in the corner of a darkened room and wonder if it would just be easier if I wasn't here. When you stay silent, it changes you. It keeps you from being who you're meant to be. And it dampens your self-worth. I learned that when I opened my mouth and I began to break the silence of what had happened to me, I began to heal for the first time. And not only did I save my life by doing so, but I saved the life of a child who was about to be abused as well. I saved another victim. We have so much power through our voice to save, to heal, and to change others' lives. And I hope you will take the responsibility you have to speak out so that someone will hear your message.
Thank you so much for sharing. As Kaylee said, you're all an incredible group of women, and I'm honored to be here with you today. Our next question, some of you have briefly touched upon it, but looking back at your own childhood, is there something that shaped or impacted your mental health or your understanding of it?
Yeah, as I mentioned, when we don't use all of our faculties to our benefit, then we negate using it for the benefit of others. And we are all here together. We are all connected. Every time I share my message on a stage or in a book, someone says to me, "Thank you. Thank you for having the courage to say that, because I've had a similar experience and I didn't know what to call it. I didn't know how I was supposed to define it. I didn't even know the words I could use." We can help each other so powerfully. And it doesn't really take a lot of time or effort. It just takes the courage and the forward motion to make a difference. That's what kept me here. Your life will keep someone else here. And sharing your message is what needs to happen. And there are so many ways that you can share that message. It doesn't have to be on a stage. That seems kind of scary for some people. I started just by writing it down. And then I would tear up those pages or I would burn them. But it was the act of releasing it. Somehow there is an amazing communication method from your heart and your brain out through your arm and to the tips of your finger, whether you're holding a pen or whether you're typing on a keyboard. That release truly is powerful. And so you start there. You start sharing on a piece of paper or using a computer to get rid of everything you're feeling. And what you would say to the people who need to hear it if you had the courage to do it, that's the first step to healing. And that is communication in itself. And you might at some point then feel ready to verbally talk about it.
So I do want to speak to Jackie's point in a moment about recovery and sharing your story, because I know that is my healing journey. I'm sure there are many people in the room that is also their healing journey. But I want to just, again, touch on my favorite topic of the day, which is the impact, that I felt in my life from social media. And the reason I want to talk about it isn't for, I think, the normal conversation. The way social media impacted me was not in those obvious ways that we see in the news today, that we see through thought leaders and through rhetoric. It wasn't just, what was in front of me on a screen, but it was how I ended up seeing myself because of that. And who I was online and who I was in person was an identity that started to completely blur, which is what caused psychosis in my life and caused me to have such severe mental health impacts that lasted from age 16 until age 21. Now, I am 26 today, and a lot of the work that I do definitely brings me kind of to both the youth and the adult. Obviously, I'm on an adult panel today, but in much of the work that I do, I'm still considered that youth because of the impacts I had during, of course, what we know as the Gen Z crisis of what took place online. So it's very frustrating, I think, sometimes for me to see the conversation that exists around social media today, because it just, again, it scratches the surface. I think we are really missing the deeper impact that youth are experiencing today. It's not just about screen time and addiction, and I know there's a lot of conversation around that that's valid, and I know that's a big concern for so many parents out there, but this is not the only concern. And it's about how that environment shapes you and who you become. And it wasn't until I deleted my social media that I opened the doors to actually finding who I could become. And this is why I want to talk about recovery as well in this part of our discussion, because the insight of, you know, how mental health impacted your childhood also means that there's an ending to that story, right? And the ending of my story could have been so much different, and I believe it would have been had I not deleted and removed myself from social media, experienced the emotional annihilation of losing the online identity, but becoming human again. And to Jackie, sharing my story has been what has given me life again. The first time I got up on a stage, I stood stoic, reading from a piece of paper, terrified in front of thousands of people at a mental health event for women. And I realized that my story, I think as we heard earlier, it's not about it being deserved to be heard, it needs to be heard. And that was a huge identity change for me, from an online persona to a real life human being that has a voice, that's going to use it, and that is going to change the life of every single person around her. And I say her because I'm a very proud woman, and I'm happy to share my story as a survivor. So thank you to Jackie for helping youth like me have that voice.
How many of you have seen a baby? Can you raise your hands? A baby, a newborn baby, or 3 months old baby. We all have seen babies, right? We all have been babies, and we all have been born perfect, with the perfect amount of self-worth, the perfect amount of self-love, and the perfect amount of self-confidence. Unfortunately, somewhere along the way, we start adopting different labels that we put on ourselves and start to lose those gifts that we were born with. So by me being here today, I really want to encourage you to take a look at the labels you are carrying with you and decide to start removing them, because everything that we have, we carry with us. We were born with it, and we deserve the best.
Are there any brave baby boomers out there that are willing to raise their hand? A few of you. Am I the only one in this whole crowd? So I grew up in the 1960s and 70s when discussions around mental health were non-existent and really just a punchline in a joke. It was something to stigmatize or make fun of. And you know, my parents labeled me as difficult, impulsive, and erratic, but they didn't provide me with any answers. But in their defense, they were acting like everyone else did back then, with stereotyping and ignorance rather than understanding. I would have truly benefited from early detection, but society wasn't ready to recognize or address the challenges that came with the mental health diagnosis. Experience in that shaped my understanding of how crucial awareness, compassion, and early support are vital for our mental well-being.
If you ask me if I knew about mental health back when I was a child, no. So I wouldn't say in 1960s, when I was born in 1980s, even then I don't think it was still a taboo and it was still a stigma. And for me, I think I grew up in India, and it was the survival, the strongest person survived. So we had to show up despite of how you're feeling, despite of what you're going through, and be there, right? So mental health was not something that we were taught or we were familiar with. And it's only in adulthood that, I got to know, and that's what something that I hope to give back to the children who come to my classes, not just teach them yoga, but as well as make sure to have that space so that they can feel seen, have the time to process their thoughts. I think that is key and essential. I have kids coming in being anxious, being very, difficult at times, but at the end of the day, when they're leaving, they feel they know what happened. Either they didn't sleep well, they didn't have food. So I think it is about giving the time to process, which we often miss out on. We have to schedule time to kind of process our thought, and that's where I think the mental health journey begins.
Continuing on that, I was born around the internet boom happened, and we had the internet, but we barely had the talks around how internet can really influence our mental well-being. So growing in the age of social media and doom scrolling, bed rotting, just consuming now short form content, I think I really have a question: how many of us can really watch a long form or a YouTube video on 1x? We all are 1.5x or 2xing it, and the amount of content that we are consuming, and it's even difficult to digest that much. So we are ourselves putting ourselves in difficulty. So I think my experience has shaped through the use of this and how we are in continuous pressure of social media in general.
Thank you. Thank you so much for sharing. For our final question today, we would love for all of the youth in the audience, what is something you wish young people would tell adults more often about their mental health?
I feel that young people should share with the adults about how they are feeling about today. You can explain it to the adults. They are there to listen. And I would suggest the young people would share openly and feel that the adults are just like your friends. It could be hard. It's not common for every situation. But if you try, the conversation can really lead you to a solution. Or if you're not looking for a solution, at least vent out your feelings. I think young people here do not really want a solution. They just want to be heard, how they feel, how they want to express themselves, and how internet or AI and is making them feel isolated at times. So coming back and connecting with your community, with your family can really help. And if young people share it openly, that will bring up solution and that will bring up new revolution.
I wouldn't say anything different. I would agree that and also I think all the teens who spoke earlier as well. I think everybody wants to be heard. And I would say for the youth or the teens out there, demand the attention, right? I have interviewed many kids of different age groups for the Conscious Children Project, and everybody said the same thing, that I want my parents' attention. At the heat of the moment, I don't want any advice. I don't want any solution. They also said that I am open for advice, but not at that time. So give me your presence. And I think one of them mentioned as well, right, the presence. I think it was the NFL player, he mentioned about presence, right? So what you should demand for is your parents' presence. Have them listen to you, or you share your thoughts and have them fix the next day. So tell them, listen now and fix later.
So what I want to hear from the youth today is that we are aware and we're listening and we're here to stop the stigma and end the silence surrounding mental health. So looking back, I realized my life was often chaotic and uncontrollable. My anger and hostility always got the best of me and burned bridges everywhere I went. And I left a trail of damaged relationships in my wake. So today I share my experiences because there is an important message. It's never too late to get help. And therefore I encourage teens today to speak up and share their own stories, just like we've heard today at the conference.
Everything starts with communication. So I really want to see from the youth to be more courageous and to reach out for the adults. I know that we're not always there to listen, but don't give up. You matter, your feelings matter, and just keep on going to the next person until you find somebody who is ready to listen to you.
I think that this is a really hard question to answer. And the reason why is because the peer support lens in me kind of questions why we're putting the onus on people who are suffering with mental health. And the clinical professional side of me says there's so many things that I want to hear. And what I want to hear hope. I want to hear about what life is going to be like when you're 40. We live in a very fast world today. We live in a world where things don't think about that. We don't think about what it's like to be 40. We think about what it's like to be 20 and 22 and 25, and we question the longevity of that. So I want to hear hope. From parents, I want to see empathy. The teens that spoke today talked about that. They talked about being treated like a teenager, actually remembering what it's like to be a teenager. And I'm going to try not to get emotional when I talk about my dad. The empathy that he provided me as a young adult who was recovering was what I needed to learn to share my story and recognize my voice and all of the things that came with recovery. And it was because of that empathy. So from young people, it's up to the professionals to ask you the right questions. And I want to hear you tell me you have hope. I want to talk about your future. And to parents, do not forget the empathy element of this experience.
Thank you, everyone on the panel. It's been so amazing to hear your experiences and your wisdom. To the youth, don't let anyone tell you that something bad will happen if you say something. Don't let them trick you into staying silent. Have those important conversations. Find someone that you trust, that you can tell. Report when you are fearful of someone. Report when someone makes you feel uncomfortable, when you don't want to hug Uncle Bob. It's okay. Own it. Stand for what you feel is right for you. And don't let anyone convince you that someone will be hurt if you say it. You need to tell what you need to tell. And parents, ask your kids the right questions. My mother once asked me, is there someone doing something? Are you letting someone do something to you they shouldn't be? What? What I heard from that is I was letting the abuse happen to me. Why would I ever tell her what was happening? Because now it's all on me. So parents, you have to ask the right questions for your children to feel that you are trusting and they can open up to you.
Thank you to our incredible group of panelists today. We're so honored to be here, and thank you for your time.